All right, everyone, we're live. Super excited to be here. Welcome to the Ravit Show. And I have experts today sitting with me, and you might be wondering what's Ronen, Vijay, and Arun doing with me. But we are here to discuss about a very special series that Ronen and Ronen, who's the CEO of K2View, joining me, very good friend, and talking a lot in the enterprise GenAI world. So we thought of starting enterprise series. We have Arun Nandi, who's the Chief Data AI and Analytics Officer at Career. Arun, welcome to the Ravit Show. Super excited to host you again. I know we met almost a year back in, it was good to host you at the Iceberg Summit. And then I have another good friend, Vijay, from Merck, who's Advanced Data Science Director there. Vijay, welcome to the Ravit Show as well.
Thank you.
It's your debut, so I'm excited to learn about everything around GenAI and how it's not only just reshaping the customer service world, but it is helping us in being a strategic advantage in the day-to-day things that we're doing, and I'm excited to learn all these things from you all today. So, Ronin, would you like to quickly introduce yourself as well? What do you do at K2View?
Hi, Ravit, and thank you, Vijay and Arun, for joining us. I'm Ronen Schwartz, CEO in K2View. We're a company that is focused on really enabling enterprise data, participate and lead the AI value, making enterprise data AI ready. And I'm really happy to have this discussion. I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. So Ronin will be my co-host for today. We'll be asking all things around GenAI. But to start with, let's start maybe with the big picture. According to Gartner, 76% of organizations plan to use GenAI to improve customers' experience or to reduce cost. So why do you think customer service is such a powerful use case for GenAI? Any thoughts around that? Maybe Arun, you can share a little bit about that because I know you've been working around data, Gen AI a lot as well.
Yeah, great question, Ravit. So I'd start off by saying customer service is almost low-hanging fruit, and I don't mean to say that it is easy by any means. Simple, not easy, right?
Right.
But when you think of generative AI and the applications which we have, I think through productivity as one of the large set of areas of what it can impact as a value driver, and customer service, obviously across organizations, whether you're B2C or B2B2C or any different variations of that, you have a customer base, and whether they're internal customers, second parties, distributors, um, joint ventures, or it's your ultimate consumers of the product that you sell, you have an engagement and a presentation layer typically with them, and that layer has a lot of people that are supporting those different areas. So I think customer service is one of those areas which is ripe for disruption from generative AI, and I mean this in a way that we can obviously use a lot of the people that are operating within those spaces, augmented with all of the data, with the power of everything that we have from the foundation models, and drive that to impact and value. Of course, there's a lot of organizations that have created a lot of buzz as well, which has contributed to that, right? So you heard a Fortune 100 company talk about 50,000 customer service reps that they want to eliminate, let's say, in the next 5 years. You have some startups talking about that as well. So you have some bit of noise as well that's coming in, some positive, some not so much, but there is a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, I think, about this space.
Yeah, so true. I think you've kind of mentioned a very important point about, obviously a lot of companies kind of making that noise and adding to, what Gen AI looks like, what customer service looks like. But I like how you kind of, mentioned it could be a low-hanging fruit out there. These are fantastic insights, Arun. Vijay, we would love to have your take on the customer
Sure.
service. It could be internal, external, but happy to hear
Yeah.
your thoughts.
Yeah. So I'll talk about the customer even from external point of view. So in healthcare, right? So one of the customer, and there are in pharmaceutical, there are multiple types of customers. One is ultimately the patients, right? So when we are manufacturing the product for the patients, how do we serve them the best, right? Now, one thing is really important. The customer service is critical. In one way, is that you just need one bad experience for customer to
Mm.
impact hundreds and thousands more people. You can live with your mistakes in other areas, but you just cannot do that in the customer experience. You have to almost be 100% right um, when it comes to customer service. Now that is a very challenging area, right? So in our case, in
Mm.
patient piece, so when patient has a question and we want to serve them, we want to make sure that we give them information which is right. You can't even, when the patients are calling, right, you better give them exact right information what they're looking for
Mm.
in a timely manner, things of that nature. So it's really critical piece that we provide that um, uh, solution that is based on the real data. Now in the space of GenAI, that becomes even more critical, because
Right.
now if you want to serve the customer, you better have the information which is fully vetted, and it is fully connected. It tells the story that is sitting behind the scenes. You can't even make things up and answer that, right? So in the space of GenAI, in terms of GenAI, I think customer service becomes more challenging, and we all have seen
Mm.
how bad experience we have. One bad experience can take away the business of that company forever, right? So I think this is really critical for Gen AI use cases, and I'm happy to share some of the piece of work we can see how we are looking into that space. But to me, I think that's the right area to focus on in the customer service, and how does it relate to the Gen AI is critically important.
Love it. I think the experience is something which you kind of said so right. When you kind of, obviously, maybe any industry, I think that experience, that customer experience kind of plays a very important role. But Ronan, I know you also kind of talk to a lot of customers out there. You have been, obviously chatting with a lot of enterprise leaders. And I know in our chat, we've kind of, obviously discussed a lot about different industries that kind of get impacted with customer service. What are your thoughts, and what do you think about Arun's and Vijay's experiences as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Ravit, you got the right speaker to us, because I definitely agree with both of them on their point of view and the depth of how they are looking into it. I always try to, when you talk about customer experience, make it like very personal. And
Mm.
I personally, when I need to actually call in a B2C scenario companies, I dread the moment that I need to get on the phone. I really dread it. Like the first few minutes of this experience is something that, like, if you look into my Apple Watch and my blood pressure, you will see what am I doing right now. And a lot of it is because the person on the other side, they come to you're in a certain distress. You call an airline because your flight is got canceled. You call
Right?
a phone company because you have a problem on your Wi-Fi. You are actually calling a bank or insurance company because the bill is not correct. You're in distress. The person on the other side is actually usually clueless. That will be the status that I'll put them. You just fell on them in the middle of their day. They just finished another call and they don't know anything about you, right?
Mm.
And this thing, which is, you are like in full focus on a real problem and they are like unaware of anything. Just getting to bridge that in the first few minutes of a call is a very bad experience for me personally, but also I think for almost anybody. And you take it into a B2B scenario or even into your internal customers, maybe it's not to the extreme that I just described, like my flight is missed, I'm going to miss my flight.
Right.
Maybe it's not to that extreme, but the dissonance or the gap between the situation is a real pain. I think Gen AI have a lot of potential to answer and bridge this gap. And it doesn't have, I think Vijay brought a really good point, that I want real assurance that what the information I'm bringing is accurate. So it
Accurate.
doesn't
True.
have to replace the human. In many cases, it actually is assisting or helping the human in the loop, and actually helping the human in the loop by bridging this knowledge gap can actually make on its own a huge difference. And when I talk to customers, and I sometimes kind of describe this scenario and say, what if the person answering the phone had a cheat sheet? And this cheat sheet were telling him just a few basic things about the customer on the other side. How much of a distress? Why is the distress? Just so the gap is closed a little bit, that on its own can make a lot of magic. And I think hearing Vijay and Arun, it looks like we all have the goal of like closing some of this gap and creating better customer experience.
Love it. I think one very important thing that Ronen you kind of mentioned is obviously about if someone kind of is sitting on the other side and has a cheat sheet, and you're kind of obviously learning more about it. So I think what I'm kind of hearing from this is customer experience kind of plays a very important role when it kind of also comes to Gen AI or the implementation. I'm kind of also curious to learn from Arun and Vijay about the different projects, and Ronen, maybe you as well, about the different projects that you have kind of worked on in the industries that you all are catering. But Arun, Vijay, I think one thing I'm curious is like about the Gen AI projects that you all might have worked on or you all are working on. It could be around chatbots, it could be around obviously virtual agents. Agents is I've been hearing from a lot of enterprise leaders where agents 2025 year is the year of agents, so I'm excited about that as well, to learn how are you all looking at in terms of implementation, and then we can get more into the implementation bit. Vijay, maybe you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So one of the piece that I'd like to highlight here is that Gen AI, of course, there's quite amount of hype, right? I think what we have focused here is that the very key ingredient to success is data that is ready for Gen AI. Now you can do one of the use case here, use case there, and so on. What my philosophy and some of the work that my team has been able to do is that think holistically and basically build data that is ready for Gen AI. And what I mean by Gen AI ready data, a data that tells the story about any entity you pick up. You pick up organization, Merck, pick any entity. Let's say you pick up a batch where you're manufacturing the drug products, right? It's a big entity. We start from beginning, you produce the whole batch, it goes through the long process. At the very end, you manufacture your product, then it basically stored in the warehouse. It basically goes, anytime it goes to the patient. If the patient has adverse event, you trace back to the batch again. So it's an entity that's really important. Now you want to be able to connect every dot with the batch. That's one entity. Now, unfortunately, the data that is stored traditionally, majority of them sitting in the databases. And we all know that structured data forms only 25% about any entity you pick up. 80 to 75% is somewhere stored in the Word documents, PDF document, things of that nature. Now, if you want to tell the story, how do you bring even the data back from those unstructured format and tell the story that can be consumed by Gen AI? Now, that is a really big challenge part. So what we have come up here is a framework to build a story in a way in the context of the business. So Merck is in the process of, in the business of manufacturing the product, for example. How do we, in the Merck context, how we bring all the data together that tells the story? And that is the framework basically we adopted to tell the story. Now, once that is basically built, literally you can get anything and everything about that entity at a place that can be basically fetched. So I'm happy to talk about one example in our case, a very simple example I can take. So pharmaceutical is a very regulated industry. One of the things that you would see is that when you go and manufacture your product on the shop floor, you have to follow each step to the dots, right? The way it is structured. If you deviate from anything from that nature, you have to document as to why you deviate that. Now, this is a very complex process. It takes days to manufacture something. And deviations are generally happening on a very regular basis. That's part of the process, not because of the human, because of the machines. Anything could happen in the process. So you have to basically, understand what the deviation is. Generally, if any type of deviation happens, you are slowing your process. You have to stop something, investigate, make sure it does not impact your quality product or the drug product on the shop floor, right? So, and so it's really important that you really do that. Now, when something is slowing down, the solution is what can we do to make it faster? So let's say something happens right now. I'm in the production floor. I'm a shop floor engineer. I'm doing something. Something happens, right? I should
Right.
be able to get to a solution where, hey, I'm facing this problem. Tell me this happened before anywhere in the history of the company. Literally, you type it few keywords and comes back. Yeah, this is what happened. Happened 3 times. The last time happened here. Here was a problem. Here it was solved, and tells you the full story. Right? Do that. Now
Mm.
imagine that was not possible before. So what we built a solution whereby it basically curates the entire knowledge about that domain. Ask any question and every question. It comes back and tells you that this type of incident has happened. Here's what recommended, not recommended, or how it was applied last time, and you can do that, right? It's pretty powerful thing to do. Now you are talking about research time about a problem from weeks to hours and minutes, right? To do
Yeah.
that. But the key success for that is your data has to be complete that tells the story.
Vijay, I want to say something also for the audience. I think it's one of the most profound way to describe it. I love your concept of the data needs to tell a story, and because this is something that especially GenAI can actually consume and work with. If the data is just a bunch of tables that are not really understood into a story, I think it's a very, very, very strong concept. I really also like your concept of it have to be complete. It have to have structured. It have to have unstructured data, and actually, this is where GenAI ability to consume massive amount of information is a game changer.
Mm.
Right.
That was not possible before, and actually consume it without the question predefined. I think that's the other thing that you kind of alluded in your talk. Like, you don't have to define what the question is because any question can come after. But if the
Yep.
entire data is there, it's actually allows the AI to define, to find a way to make sense out of that. I think it's very. Thank you for sharing. I think that's very, very, very exciting.
Love
Yeah.
it.
So,
To add,
and I'm happy to share, some we can go into how, in the limited time we can talk about some of the concept that was applied in that framework to build the data. We can talk about that. But that's absolutely that's the way to do it.
Fantastic. Arun, what are
yeah,
your
I
thoughts?
was just going to add to Ronan your comment that there is this there's this challenge that many of us data and AI practitioners deal with. So those are folks who have accountability into both the data side of the fence and the AI side of the fence, which is um, most organizations arguably have complex data estates, right? And your data, organizing your data foundations in a manner that is more consumable is a constantly evolving picture. And I would argue that most organizations you talk to will probably say, hey, we're on that journey. We're still getting there, but we're not at a place where we can describe it as we've got amazingly clean data. So it's always going to be a journey. However, the challenge is the generative AI, and when you talk about now extending that onto agentic AI, comes with a set of principles which essentially says, do you need everything to be clean and structured and of the right quality in order to be able to consume, or should these be able to work right out of the box, quote unquote?
Mm.
Right? And I think that's an important and important distinction that is a question and a challenge posed to us, which is a great one, because I do believe that you are able to achieve a lot regardless of the state of the maturity of your data estate, specifically with generative AI. And I think that is a great opportunity for us to accelerate these downstream applications and impact driven applications while still managing to evolve on that longer term journey of data quality and data foundations.
I think I think this is also a very good insight, and I want to say that what I'm taking from from some of your last statement is don't necessarily wait for the data to be perfect, because some of us have been waiting for that for a long time, and we can still wait for it. There is a lot of value in the data that you have, even in the current situation. Not to say that it's not important to fix what needs to be fixed, but it should not be a blocker for the adoption and value that you can then. I think that's very solid. Robert, is it okay if I'll share a little bit about like how do I see
Please,
that? And,
I was gonna ask you
yeah,
more about, because your insights, you've been on the building side, but at the practitioner side too, you've been working. So, please share, Ronen.
I love the fact that GenAI actually I think enables like three things. The first one, it enables anyone to ask questions. And we in the industry have been focused a lot of time about expanding the user, self-service in places like analytics, etc. But we never went outside of the boundary of analytics when you say anyone. Now we're talking about like really the end customer, really the partner, the employee. So the anyone is getting into a different scale because the LLM conversational interface is really enabling anybody to ask to work with and ask. I think the second part is actually the any question. Because unlike analytics and other things like that, you either needed to wait for a long time for an answer or you need a predefined report to look at, suddenly the ability to really ask any question is there. And you can ask even very, I'll call it like very valuable questions, but you can also ask simple questions and get fast answers that just get you forward, right? And I think the third part, and I kind of mentioned them all kind of together, is the fact that we moved into a conversational interface. And it's conversational in a chatbot between a human and the AI technology, but also conversational between different AI agents that are solving the problem. The interesting part with conversational latency is that things are expected to work way faster. It's expected to work like we're talking here today. And this is also raising the bar on your data readiness. I think like Vijay mentioned earlier, like, hey, the story, somebody needs to actually connect the things so that there is a story to the data. Because if you want to use it in real time in a conversation, the data need to be just like the way it is in our head. It's connected into a paradigm, a story, and so on. So I really see customers looking into these three aspects, like anybody asking any question in a latency, and this is the lenses that they try to bring the value. In many cases, especially in the B2C, I see it starting from the customer back. So from how do I bring value to the customer? I do see efficiency, but I actually see the bringing to the value even more than I see the efficiency. And the good thing is that I think most of the customer that I work with that have products that got to full production, they're actually achieving both at the same time, which is like magic. Can I give better customer service in lower cost? And I think now it is possible thanks to technology.
Yeah. No, I love it. Thanks for sharing those insights. And definitely, end user, it's about the customer in the end and how they're looking at something like this. So this is exactly, why I wanted to do this, because I kind of get an very like an enterprise side, which is very regulated healthcare, where Arun kind of comes up and obviously shares his thoughts around the foundation, or not making it perfect in terms of the data foundation, and then Ronen, you come in and also share your 360-degree about working with different industries. But I also want to be obviously pick this topic where I talk to a lot of leaders, and obviously I kind of try to download as much as I can when it comes to GenAI projects. And most of the enterprise leaders, fortunate or unfortunate, they always tell me that most GenAI projects don't struggle with vision. It's more about it's the jump from POC to the the production that trips people up. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I know for a fact, Vijay, Arun, you all work with, you all are looking at the Gen AI implementation, the vision as well. But uh, do you all agree with something like that? And if yes, why? Arun, maybe you can go first.
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. And I would agree with that hypothesis. I think there's a lot of great POCs and experimentation going on. And, my teams have done some amazing work in identifying some high value use cases, taking
Hmm.
them to drive an output with some strong hands on the keyboard work that you have, and
Right.
you put some of your top people on that innovation and you get that going. I think where we struggle, where organizations typically struggle, large organizations struggle more than smaller ones, are because you have a very defined way of how you take a product through the different gates. You have a standard CI/CD sort of a set of guidelines that you follow, and this has been
Right.
built over years and years of us moving from
Exactly.
mainframes to building those ERP applications and then into consumer applications. So you got that legacy of all of the sort of the governance that is built around it to ensure that you're building these enterprise grade, production ready, large
Hmm.
scale, massive applications. Now the challenge is with generative AI, you've got to build some of these newer paradigms, but you've also got to break some of those older rules. And I think that's where we're trying to fit perhaps a round peg into a square hole type of a situation here, because we really need to have some of these which are productionized and brought into scalable manners much faster. And I
Hmm.
think this is where I would argue that there's an entire industry within the service provider ecosystem that has cropped up, which is helping organizations with things like accelerators. So accelerators work really well because they are taking that, they're essentially disrupting the process flow of what you might have, but you've got these pockets of success and then you're taking it to production. So I think that's the real sort of the magic sauce that organizations are trying to grapple with, and I think it'll require us to work. For me, as a data and AI person, it'll require us to work with our platforms, our enterprise architecture, our traditional legacy IT
Hmm.
functions, and really sort of hold hands together to progress this entire ecosystem into this new age. Otherwise we're going to find it challenging to overcome this really important part of the puzzle.
Love it. It's more about the mindset as well that I kind of feel, needs to change. In sometimes it's about the implementation, but that's like the major challenge as well. Ronan, what do you think about it?
I usually will highly recommend for anybody to push for three things. I think the first one is, um, you can very easily you can get value by doing small things. You do not necessarily have to change everything. My
Mm.
biggest example is like in a call center, you can fix and automate the entire answering. You can have agents that are just solving all the problems to the customer in 100%. But maybe the first step is in a couple of weeks to have at the first second of the call, in front of the person that is speaking to the customer, summary of the top five things they need to know about the person on the other side, and just close this knowledge gap of and how it reduces the risk, it accelerates the time to value, and I will tell you a secret: it can actually shorten the call by 50% and get the solution rate in the first call 3 or 4 times higher. So I would say, like, sometimes you can actually get the value, prove the point, and mitigate the risk in a very, very easy way. I do agree with Arun that using, whether it is software vendors or SI that actually have packaged capabilities, accelerate and reduces risk as well. Maybe the only other thing that I will highlight is, um, you don't have to have agents, autonomous agents from day one. You want to get there, but you don't have to do it from day one. There are at least two steps you can do before that. Agent supporting a human, I'll call it like an AI agent supporting a human agent, then an AI agent supporting the customer, and autonomous can be the third step. So don't always have to jump to the third step. You can start from step number one, even with a smaller goal, then go to step number two, step number three. You can iterate fast, but I think making the incremental steps is there. In K2V, we almost insist with our customers on try to show value in the first month, right? And really try to touch the end customer that you
Right.
have in the first month. That would be my advice and my experience.
Fantastic. Vijay, what are you seeing when it comes to, the jump from POC to production, and that becomes like a challenge sometimes too?
Yeah, no, that's obviously very burning topic, and it becomes more complex in the healthcare settings. As you know, anytime you deploy a solution that is helping in any way that might affect the patient safety, product quality, in an adverse way, there's a FDA control that comes around it. They call it GMP process, good manufacturing process, at GXP, right? FDA mandates, and there's a guidelines, and AI is new for them, right? It just gives the guidelines, and it comes with a quite amount of restricted way of how you can deploy the actual solution. You got to have the full control of every piece of code, every piece of model. You should be able to prove it that when the model went to production, it is telling the outcome. You're staying within that range. Are you giving almost repeatable outcomes? You know that AI is very difficult to have the repeatable outcomes to do that. How to deploy? So even that piece becomes more challenging. So applying the FDA guidelines, deploying a solution that impacts the patient safety and product quality is a huge challenge actually. So that adds a layer of other things that you can basically do it, right? So that's what we are addressing. Obviously, when I say FDA guidelines, they're not giving you the recipe, they're giving you the guidelines. You take the guidelines and you come up with the recipe, and you should be able to defend it, to prove it that whatever your system is doing, which is driven by AI, it's giving the consistent, repeatable outcomes without you failing the proof at any point of time. If that is not the case, you got a big problem, right? So then for us, the deployment is become more restricted, very challenging. You have to go step by step process, the whole qualification process of your infrastructure, all the piece of software that goes along with that adds a complexity. But obviously we have to do it because that's where the value is. So I would say that's a very difficult. On top of the traditional challenges in IT space, we have next layer of complexity that we're trying to solve.
And I'm assuming, Vijay, that for you in that case, actually testing the repeatability of the AI is probably a key for anything that you roll out. Is that right?
Big time. Big time. You have to prove it, and you can't be wrong. You can't even have one exception. Oh, it was off one time, but 99% was a time okay. Even 99% doesn't work actually, right? So that becomes a challenging part. Yes, indeed.
Right. I think regulated industries have like a different ball game altogether when it comes to GenAI implementation, and obviously proving that to obviously the government as well and the agencies out there. So
Indeed.
that is huge. Thanks for those insights. Also, now quickly, I know keeping time in mind, I wanted to also I can talk to you all three for hours and do this forever, but I wanted to quickly touch base on what do you think about customer facing Gen AI when it comes to data? What sort of data are you tapping into? Is it more structured, unstructured, transactional? Just wanting to get your thoughts around that as well. I know we touched a little bit on the data foundation bit, but just wanting to hear a little more about, obviously the data, the kind of data you all are getting into. Arun?
Yeah. So I mentioned this briefly earlier, but
Yep.
it is a combination of unstructured data and structured data.
Right.
We've become extremely proficient as an industry at the treatment of structured data. And I think we're only 4 years into the treatment of unstructured data. Most organizations are. Some have had a bit of a head start. Those that have worked on NLP related use cases pre the Gen AI cycle that we're in. So I think it's always going to be a combination of those. I would argue that going forward, for us to enable a lot of these use cases, it's going to have to be very much unstructured data forward, but also a combination of what you're using from your structured databases, which probably have a lot of information related to everything that you've built around customer lifecycle value, all of the
Right.
different tools that you have as well. So it's got to be a good mix of that that you require.
Yeah. Vijay, what do you think about it?
Yeah, no, I think that's I talked about a little bit earlier, is that we need to convert the data into the business context to tell the
Hmm.
story. Now, each business is different. Is there a common framework, right? Can a framework be used to convert the unstructured data to structured format? Traditionally, to a large extent, yes, but there's some nuances in almost every industry that we have. So from our experience, and I think the comment was made. Obviously, we can drive the value, which is low hanging fruit, to do it. I think if we want to win the race for AI,
Hmm.
while you're doing the driving the value, we talked about the building the data for Gen AI. At some point, you will need it. You just can't stop building use case basis. Yeah, you can drive the value, immediate value, you can do that, but after a while, you ultimately, that is where you have to do it. So you better prepare today rather than let me do the few use cases here and there, not thinking holistically. So I think it's really important that we keep focus on both the elements while you're driving the value, but you're building the foundation for the future to do it.
Love it.
And more
Love
delay
it.
you do, I mean, my philosophy, more delay you do, there's nobody is magically going to solve that problem for you tomorrow. Even the AI can't do it, right? So you
Right.
start building that foundation today that you're ready in 6 months and a year. All these agents piece, I mean, it's quite a bit of hype. Ultimately, Gen AI is going to rely on your data.
Hmm.
There's no Gen AI that comes the magic. Relying on data means you have to build a data that is robust, that includes every part of the organization data, is structured, unstructured. Every piece of information in the organization has to be built into that business domain context to drive the value.
Vijay, I think it's an amazing summary of the point. I think you touched everything that I even considered saying. So maybe the only thing that I'll say is that unlike analytics that usually have a point of view backwards, in the Gen AI scenarios, it's really important to look into the data from a real time, fresh data as well. Like yesterday data might not be able to answer today or
Sure,
right now
absolutely.
question. But I love your point of view on the breadth of the data, the need for completeness, and I think it's a very, very, very good way. Arun, I also really wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate your amazing insight and look here. Yes.
Fantastic. One quick question for all three of you, and I can answer that one as well. I'll ask a question and I'll answer it myself too, which is about one advice if you all have for enterprise leaders who are starting their journey in terms of implementing AI or getting into Gen AI. Any just one quick advice, maybe Vijay?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat myself, that if you want to win the AI race, start thinking about building the Gen AI ready data. You can win the
Nice.
short races, absolutely. Long
Hmm.
race, that's where you have to go. That's my funny point.
Good data. Yeah. Arun,
Try many things and break some rules on the way.
love it. Ronen?
I'm with Vijay. I think I don't. We didn't coordinate in advance, but I also think that a lot of the Gen AI technology will people will choose from existing solution. What will differentiate your outcome is how ready your data is and how well you leverage it in your Gen AI. So getting your internal data AI ready, I think, is key.
I'm with all three of you, to be honest. Break rules, just get the work done. Obviously, data foundation plays a very important role, internal, externally, for customers. And if customers are happy, everyone's happy. But my one a quick advice is they should be following all three of you, and learn about all these things, and keep, be ahead in the Gen AI game. But I think this was the discussion I really wanted to have, with all three of you. Thanks for Ronen for co-hosting this and being a partner, in crime, to discuss more about Gen AI and the implementation. And Arun and Vijay, it's such a pleasure hosting you both. I can't wait to obviously do a part two, or 2.0, where we can discuss more in depth about different topics, maybe the challenges as well that you all have seen in this space. But again, such a pleasure. We'll definitely see you next time on the Gen AI Playbook Enterprise Edition. This is specifically for leaders like yourself. But for those who are joining us, if you all have questions, I know Arun and Vijay are super active on LinkedIn, and even Ronin. You all can reach out to them. I'll make sure to tag them in the post here. So you all can follow them, reach out to them, ask questions. Maybe you might have suggestions as well. So once again, thanks group for chatting with us, and until next time, see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ravi.
Thank you, everyone.
Vijay. Thanks, Arun.